Pol Pot, born Saloth Sar in 1925, was a Cambodian revolutionary who led the Khmer Rouge, a radical communist movement that ruled Cambodia from 1975 to 1979. His regime was responsible for one of the worst genocides of the 20th century, during which an estimated 1.7 to 2.5 million people were killed. 2 million people, about a quarter of Cambodia's population, died from starvation, forced labor, and execution. Pol Pot was born in Prek Spauv, a small village in Cambodia, which was then a French colony. He came from a relatively affluent family and was sent to Phnom Penh for his education. Later, he received a scholarship to study in Paris in 1949, where he was exposed to Marxist-Leninist ideas and joined the French Communist Party. It was during this period that Pol Pot became deeply influenced by Marxist thought, particularly the ideas of class struggle and revolution. Pol Pot returned to Cambodia in 1953 and joined the clandestine communist movement that opposed the French colonial rule and the Cambodian monarchy. Over the next decade, he rose through the ranks of the Cambodian Communist Party, known as the Khmer Rouge, which gained support among the rural population. In the 1960s, Pol Pot became the leader of the Khmer Rouge. He advocated for a radical form of communism that sought to transform Cambodia into a self-sufficient agrarian utopia, free from the influence of foreign powers and urban culture. The Khmer Rouge waged a guerrilla war against the Cambodian government, which was backed by the United States during the Vietnam War. The Khmer Rouge's fortunes improved significantly after the U.S. bombing campaign in Cambodia from 1969 to 1973, which destabilized the country and increased support for the communists. By 1975, the Khmer Rouge had gained control of most of Cambodia, and on April 17, 1975, they captured the capital, Phnom Penh. This marked the beginning of Pol Pot's brutal regime. Once in power, Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge set about implementing their radical vision for Cambodia. They immediately evacuated cities and towns, forcing millions of people into the countryside to work in collective farms. The regime abolished money, private property, religion, and traditional family structures. Education, healthcare, and all forms of modern technology were severely restricted or banned. Pol Pot's goal was to create a classless society of pure peasants, which led to the persecution of anyone seen as an intellectual, capitalist, or foreign sympathizer. People who were educated, spoke foreign languages, or even wore glasses were often targeted for execution. Ethnic minorities, religious groups, and those associated with the previous government were also persecuted. The regime's policies led to widespread famine and disease, as the population was overworked in labor camps under brutal conditions. The infamous killing fields became a symbol of the genocide, where mass executions were carried out. Many were tortured in detention centers like the notorious Tuol Sleng Prison S-21 before being killed. The Khmer Rouge's extreme policies, along with Pol Pot's paranoia and purges within his own ranks, weakened the regime. In 1978, tensions with Vietnam, a former ally, escalated into a full-scale invasion. The Vietnamese army overthrew the Khmer Rouge in January 1979 and installed a puppet government in Phnom Penh. Pol Pot and the remnants of the Khmer Rouge retreated to the jungles along the Thai border, where they continued a guerrilla war against the Vietnamese-backed government for nearly 2 decades, albeit with much reduced influence. In the years following his ouster, Pol Pot remained the de facto leader of the Khmer Rouge, although his influence waned. The movement continued to resist the Cambodian government, but by the late 1990s, it had largely collapsed. In 1997, Pol Pot was arrested by his own followers during an internal power struggle within the Khmer Rouge. He was placed under house arrest in a remote jungle area. On April 15, 1998, Pol Pot died, reportedly of heart failure, though some believe he may have committed suicide to avoid being handed over to an international tribunal. Pol Pot's legacy is one of unparalleled brutality and suffering. The genocide carried out under his regime left deep scars on Cambodian society that persist to this day. The Extraordinary Chambers in the Courts of Cambodia, ECCC, also known as the Khmer Rouge Tribunal, was established in 2006 to bring surviving leaders of the Khmer Rouge to justice. But Pol Pot himself never faced trial for his crimes. The atrocities of the Khmer Rouge era serve as a grim reminder of the dangers of radical ideologies and unchecked power. Pol Pot's regime is often cited as one of the most extreme examples of what can happen when utopian ideals are pursued at the expense of human life and dignity. Pol Pot's regime remains a stark example of the devastating consequences of totalitarianism, where ideological purity and absolute power led to one of the most horrific genocides in modern history. The suffering inflicted on the Cambodian people serves as a reminder of the importance of vigilance against the dangers of extremism, intolerance, and the erosion of human rights. Even decades later, Cambodia continues to grapple with the trauma of this dark chapter, and the world is reminded of the need to preserve the values of humanity, justice, and peace to prevent such tragedies from recurring.